It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right. Let's get to some audio cuts.
All right.
Reaction on Venezuela and grabbing Maduro the other day. Here we go. We'll start with John Fetterman, Democrat Senator John Fetterman, who was on Fox News.
Senator Chris Murphy, your Democratic colleague, called the operation wildly illegal. America doesn't want this war. Nobody asked for this. And I think the most important conversation to have is Venezuela is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. Do you want to take this on?
I respect my friend in Connecticut, but we have different views on this and perhaps other views as well. I just said this on my social media that, remind everybody that America is a force of good, order, and democracy, and we are promoting these kinds of values. We are the good guys. Let's pretend that now we are acting in a way. Now, remember, we all Democrats years ago wanted to eliminate him, and why have a bounty of $25 million if we didn't want him gone? Why would you do these things if you weren't willing to actually do something other than harsh language?
Well, because they want harsh language, and that's it. And we mentioned Chris Murphy and his position just a couple of years ago, which is the opposite, just like Chuck Schumer, the opinion that he holds now.
Right. Yeah. It's at least Fetterman's calling his own party out once again. But he should also know by now, as a member of that party and a current senator, that this is exactly what they do. They only want to talk tough. And then if the other side actually does something about it, then they want to complain about it. Now it's wrong to do something about Maduro. Now it's wrong. And it's, interesting watching it because the activist media was kind of doing their own weird little, I don't know, they were morphing into from at first, can't believe he did it, to why didn't he do more and take the entire Maduro administration out and the entire regime. And then on Monday, and I think it was, the people trying to poke holes in the case and in the indictment. Well, they're not mentioning, like the New York Times did a piece on the fact that Cartel de Solis, I think is the name of it, and Marco Rubio's been mentioning it, and that Venezuela basically, officially, the government led by Maduro was the head of that cartel. And then, well, in the new indictment, in the revised indictment, they took that cartel name down and only mentioned it 3 times, and it was dozens of times before. It's like, well, it gets back to the actions, and certainly there is a question about, all right, how much of this in an American court can you prove, and then what do you have against Maduro, and then how far will it go, and then if he's convicted, what kind of sentence are we looking? Where does it go from here in the legal system? A great conversation to have. Nobody knows. That's the problem. But this idea that, well, they don't really have anything. They don't really. I think they have quite a bit. The question is, what can they do with it in court?
No, they do have quite a bit. But the interesting thing, and we talked about this yesterday with Marco Rubio when he was talking about this is a law enforcement operation. Of course, that legally it was a law enforcement operation, but the United States wants regime change in Venezuela. Mm-hmm. Let's not BS anybody. That's what we want. Mm-hmm. We've wanted it before under both Democrat, not just in Venezuela and other countries. This is not the first time that we have that this has happened. but there's a double thing. You want to punish somebody who's been irresponsible, you believe, for criminal activity against the United States of America, and at the same time, this person heads a country, and you want him and his cronies out, and you want the democratically elected government or a democratically elected government put in. Now, this may cause, as we said, the problem here isn't legal. It's not constitutional. The problem here is political. There is a significant portion of MAGA that was they look at what Trump is right now, and they're like, who the hell is this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Now, we're not a part of that because we're not surprised by any of it. We're not the ones that ever said he was an isolationist.
Right.
And if you didn't see what he did by taking out Soleimani and others, that the thing that he doesn't want is boots on the ground, which is why the other day when he said, well, we might have to put boots on the ground, that wasn't taken well by, and then they backed off of that big time.
Right.
About the boots on the ground.
Right.
But again, in some of these things, Trump is his own worst enemy by he just wings it, and then Marco Rubio's got to clean it up, as he was doing on Sunday.
Yeah.
But the fact is, it doesn't change anything. It
Right,
doesn't change the legality of it, and it doesn't change the fact that the United States, Democrats and Republicans, both wanted him out of power and wanted a new government in there.
Right.
Now, the party in the minority won't admit it, and they have a completely different opinion than what they had. That's the dumb thing, too, when you think about it. We're offering a $25 million reward. Democrats did that. Remember, they upped it.
Right.
That doesn't do anything.
Right. No, it's not. And
Wow, can Trump get the...
that they were talking about it at the press conference on Saturday. I'm watching the press conference, and Marco Rubio mentioned something, and then Trump said something to him, or was it Hegseth? But they were talking about the $25 million reward, and they kind of made a joke about it. But the
reward was put out. Why? What? To pretend that you're serious about it?
Right.
Don't do it. If you're not serious, don't pretend. Don't BS the American public. Don't say one thing that has, or don't do something that is strictly symbolic and has nothing behind it. But let's get to more audio because The View, Anna Navarro, you ready for this?
Okay.
When Whoopi was saying she thought it was wrong and, who voted for this, which again, political points. Yeah, there are political points. And yeah, what happens in the future, just like what happens in Gaza, in Iran, in Ukraine, what happens in the future could always affect the president negatively or positively. We don't know yet.
Right.
And so you've been bringing up that question. Well, what happens in the future? Well, I guess we'll see. You and I figured it out. We went, well, probably what they're going to do is they're threatening the current government, saying, well, you don't agree with us, we can grab you too.
Right.
And did you see the story? That they were firing near the presidential palace at a drone, and it was their own drone.
It was their own drone.
I mean,
and they didn't even hit their own drone.
Right.
That when they thought the enemy was coming, from their position, they thought, well, we're being attacked. And it was their own drones, so they started firing at their own drones and missed.
Now, I'll get to the View thing in just a moment here, but the political problem for the president, again, he's not running for re-election again, but the political problem, if there is potentially one, is the fact that you will have a significant portion of MAGA say, look, your whole election was about we need to stay out of all this stuff and just take care of Americans.
Right.
And prices are still extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going down for the things that people actually buy.
Mm-hmm.
Gasoline's down again. Hasn't really been affected by Venezuela at the moment, though, but I wouldn't expect it to because they can't ramp up to 3 million barrels a day again for a while. That's going to take a significant period of time.
Right.
To go
but you've
back.
got to get...
It's been so degraded.
Chevron may be there. They're not operating really at capacity, and other companies would have to get involved, and you don't do that overnight.
And so, what you're doing is, okay, you're going to quarantine, which hurts Russia and China and Iran, which is your entire goal, and it puts a stranglehold on funding, a significant portion of funding that they have used, that the cartel has also used, because, as we know, the government is the cartel.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is the threat that if you don't cooperate, we'll grab you too, and you'll be on trial in the United States.
Right.
You want out? Get out. Let's get the free elections going. But of course, it's always what the future is going to bring, and we will see. But the problem is what Fetterman just said. The fact that any Democrat that's complaining about that this is illegal, you've got the audio of them criticizing Donald Trump for not going after Maduro. Back when?
Yeah.
And then you've got this from The View. Here we go.
Your question, who voted for this? The people in South Florida. The Venezuelan community, the Cuban American community, the Nicaraguan American community voted for this. And for us, this is a very, very happy day when we see a dictator who has been part of oppressing and abusing the Venezuelan people for 25 years. When we see him in handcuffs and held to some sort of accountability, it brought me to tears. It brought me great joy. And, I live in South Florida.
But are you okay with the way that it was done?
But you can, I think both things can be true.
Okay.
I think you can criticize and ask questions and have concerns about the way it was done and what this means in the future.
Right.
And I think you can still celebrate that this murderous, corrupt, sadistic son of a bitch is out of Venezuela.
Yeah.
Because he has... I think there's 8 million Venezuelan exiles all over the world. People have fled from this man's tyrannical rule. So...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's The View.
Yeah.
Now, again, well, what about how it was done? Pretty damn well. I don't know. I mean, it's... How else do you get him?
And I don't
How
know
else do you bring him to what's the other option to bring him to justice?
I don't know the answer to this question that I'm about to ask, but were they asking the same thing when we went into Pakistan to get Osama bin Laden? Different situation. It wasn't an indictment, but did they have a concern about the way that was handled? I don't know. I don't watch The View. But a lot on the left want to criticize again and want to say, again, we had Chuck Schumer and Murphy in the past talk about, well, Trump says he's going to do this and he can't he won't do anything about Maduro. Well, he did something about it, and now they're complaining about it. And that's walking what you heard here is just walking the fence. But her main point, because the question is from Whoopi, who voted for this? And she answered that question. Because the whole method thing, sorry, but this is going to pass every test.
Well, I mean, because that will run you around in circles.
Right.
Well, we're so glad that he went in and got him, but are you happy with the way it was done?
Right.
Well, what was the other way to get him?
Right.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't have gotten him then.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So you keep going in a circle.
We should have gotten him, but not this way. Well, there was no other way.
Right.
You got to go in, and this is an operation that, while the main part of this, the effective part of this operation and carrying out this mission happened this past weekend, the planning and training for this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
So there was great risk involved here, militarily and politically for this president, tremendous risk. But the reward is Maduro is no longer in power. So,
and are you on a path to bringing democracy back to Venezuela?
And that's an open-ended question. The intent is yes, you would like to be, and we'll see if that happens, and hopefully it will.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Surviving and thriving as an owner-operator has just as much to do with managing costs as it does with generating revenue. Understanding basic principles of operating costs can save you thousands of dollars a year. Costs are not the same each month. If 9,600 miles are driven one month and 10,000 miles the next, two different sets of costs apply for each month. For example, if your tractor payment is $1,850 per month and you drive 9,600 miles in the month, your tractor payment is costing you 19.3 cents per mile. Drive 10,000 miles, though, and that same payment will cost you 18.5 cents per mile. This is one of your major fixed costs while paying off a truck loan. The difference in this example is only a fraction of a cent, which may seem like small change, but it ultimately amounts to $960 more annually on the bottom line. Because though fixed costs do not go down over time, you can reduce your cost per mile with more paid miles. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Let's hear from Scott Jennings on CNN about the future of Venezuela.
They've allowed this vice president to be sworn in. She may be worse than Maduro, but she does see what happens when you get out of line. And so she has, and the rest of the government has incentives.
Another law enforcement operation, that's what happens?
Well, I mean, there's other people down there that are under law enforcement indictment, I think, in the United States. The bottom line is they need to play ball with the United States or they're going to suffer the same or a worse fate. So I think they're going to allow this to unspool for a while. They'll probably have an election. I don't know how soon. But there's a functioning government down there. To the extent that they're smart people and want to listen to what our position on things is, they should do that. If they do, it'd probably turn out okay for them.
You know, one of the things when Trump says, you know, we're in control, some people came to the assumption, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, yeah. Not came to the assumption. They asked the question, what does that mean?
Right.
Do we have people down there? Do we have a surrogate government? No, we don't. No, right. We don't have. We are not running the government.
No. Marco Rubio does not have an office.
Right.
In Venezuela.
We're not running the government. But Trump saying that just set off the mainstream media. Well, how are we running it? And it said, well, and you and I knew exactly what he meant by that. It might not have been the correct choice of words.
It's our game now. We have the upper hand. We have, as Marco Rubio was trying to tell, who was it over the weekend? Oh, it was Stephanopoulos.
Yeah.
He used the word, Marco Rubio used the word leverage. Our leverage is this. Right. And that is, and that's when you have the upper hand. When you have the upper hand, you can control what happens here. And Scott Jennings basically said what we had said yesterday on our show, that we believe at the vice president being sworn in as president and clearly having a change of tone over the weekend and late into Sunday, she was like, oh, well, we're going to...
Then it reversed it a little bit again on Monday.
Yeah.
Right.
and that's the thing is that locally, on the ground, she's got to be Maduro strong, Team Maduro, right? Because his loyalists are there, and she doesn't know who among them is loyal and not, and who might try and come after her for not being loyal to Maduro. And she also doesn't know, she might be looking at it going, well, Maduro, if he ever, if a Democrat becomes president in the U.S. and pardons Maduro and sends him back, I may have to answer for anything that I do.
Well, the other thing is, and this is a great point, the CIA operatives on the ground and inside the government, how many traitors are there?
Right.
How many wanted Maduro gone?
Exactly.
How many inside the government are not in favor of where the government is going?
Right.
Here's a question. We don't know.
We don't know.
That the CIA may know.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. More on the situation in Venezuela and the president's actions, and Maduro now going to face trial in the United States. And I was reading that this thing could take years before he ever comes to trial.
Yeah,
it could
right.
take years. Trump
Right.
could be out of office
Right.
for a long time. They're saying this could be a very long ball kind of prosecution. And but this is interesting. This is on Bret Baier's show, and Brit Hume on giving his analysis.
You know, once again, Brad, I think what we're seeing is this reflexive reaction against anything and everything that Donald Trump does or says. And I think there's a certain amount of demand for that within the Democratic Party, and a feeling among all these politicians that they have to respond to that. But it keeps getting them in a situation where they seem to be on the side of the bad guys. Nicolas Maduro is an evil dictator. There's no doubt about that. I think most Americans recognize that. Most citizens recognize that. And, you know, here they are appearing, at least, by the virtue of attacking the action to bring him to justice as improper, appearing to be on his side. So I think that what we're seeing here, once again, Brett, is what has been, I think, quite accurately referred to as Trump derangement syndrome, and I don't think it leads to a good place for the Democrats.
Yeah. Then we go to, this is Martha MacCallum on Fox. I got it. Going after Democrat Representative Jason Crow in his opposition to what the Trump administration did by grabbing Maduro. Here we go.
This operation was less than 2.5 hours long. It's much more similar to what we did with Noriega in Panama, or even what President Obama did with Gaddafi in Libya. This is an extraction operation. He's the head of the snake, and the snake is still there to a certain extent. But isn't it better to remove the head, at least, to start the process?
We don't know that. That's the point.
We've never known it. But the question is whether or not do you get around to a point where you actually take some action, or do you just talk about it since 1989, as we've just heard many prominent Democrats do?
The Maduro regime, as it was constructed, exists almost in its entirety as we sit here today in Venezuela.
So they should have taken out the whole thing.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
So we should take out no one.
What I'm saying is I don't believe it's in our immediate interest that Americans want us to be engaged in another nation-building quagmire like we have done for 20 years.
You have about 100,000 Americans dying of drug overdose, most of those drugs coming from Venezuela and other places, Colombia certainly as well.
That's actually not true.
That's not true that 100,000 Americans.
The majority of the deaths by drugs in America are the result of meth and fentanyl. Almost none of that comes from Venezuela.
So you're okay with massive amounts of cocaine traffic coming into the United States from Venezuela?
No, I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is if we want a real drug strategy, if we want to stop fentanyl and meth, which is largely what's killing our children and devastating our communities, then we need a real drug strategy to do that. But actually going and deposing a foreign leader and capturing them and now saying we're going to run the country, as Donald Trump just said on Saturday,
he was indicted by the U.S. Justice Department. So we should just not follow through on action and indictments of our own Justice Department to bring him to justice in the United States. Otherwise, what's the point of these sorts of indictments?
That is not at all what I'm saying, right? There are thousands of people who are indicted. But just because somebody is indicted, does that mean that we go and depose a leader and actually say we're going to run a country? Donald Trump on Saturday said very specifically that the United States is going to run Venezuela, that we're going to be in control of it, and we're going to put our oil companies in place. We didn't leave anyone there. So I think that interpretation, it sounds to me that the interpretation is to try to help the oil industry get up and running again, to prevent the drug operation from flowing across. We've seen the early steps of that operation. Also, you've got Iran, China, Cuba. A lot of bad actors are using it as a forward operating base against the United States. Absolutely, which is part of the problem, because you just said we left nobody on the ground. So the Cubans are still there.
So you said you don't want anyone on the ground. The mistake was that we didn't take out all of the other heads of operation, but you didn't want us to take out Maduro in the first place. So you're saying that there's no threat. There's no threat from this operation.
No, Mark, that's a straw man. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is just because there's a problem does not mean that the solution should be we go in militarily, that we depose a president, and then we now own that problem, and we have to occupy and address it.
Well, he was given many opportunities to go into exile, all of which he refused. So eventually you got to follow through, or your word is worth nothing. If you indict this drug kingpin leader and you never do anything about it, which is what we saw in all the prior administrations, eventually they're laughing at you.
What the point she's missing is the fact that is well known out there that he's the head of the cartel. Whether it's cocaine or fentanyl doesn't matter.
Right.
It's the well, I mean, I guess it does matter if fentanyl kills more than cocaine. But a lot of cocaine out there, people believe is fentanyl, or a lot of fentanyl out there, people believe is cocaine when they do it, as we know. But she's missing the point that the big picture, yes, it's about, bringing him in, but it is about regime change, and it's about regime change because the government controls the cartel. The money that comes in from the drugs helps to fund terrorist groups that work against the United States, including Hezbollah, we've talked about before.
Yep.
And Hamas, does it fund Hamas? Is a question. Hamas, Hezbollah, Central American gangs, the Venezuelan gangs.
Yep.
All of this money goes, and so you have a government, which when you talk about the narco-terrorists, this is about the government being involved in it. It's not the government not being able to handle the cartels and needing the help of the American government or the American military to get rid of the cartels. It's the government being the cartel.
Right.
And the cartel funding terrorist groups against the United States.
That's, Venezuela's become a gateway for those terrorist groups that you just mentioned. And they're Iranian proxies. We know that already. And so as that gateway country, and during the Biden years, knowing that the southern border was wide open, you just set it up to where, because that was the Biden policy, come back, we want you here, and they were flooding across the border. Well, how many that were terrorists were flooding across the border? We know from Border Patrol, we know from ICE that some of them were, along with violent gang members. This is the thing. Just as Hezbollah, Hamas can act as proxies for nations, Venezuela also has gangs. So as the head of a cartel, as Maduro is, he has strongmen himself being those gang members because they facilitate that drug flow. And they do that through violence here in the U.S. That was the big thing, is that it was just this open faucet flow of countless individuals coming here and having their way in a system where Democrats didn't care about the violence on the rise in major cities. They didn't care about foreign gangs taking over entire apartment complexes. What did they care about? Going after ICE. And if you're an ICE agent, you can't wear a mask. That's what they care about. President Trump cared about everything that Venezuela represented in the actions of all the bad actors that we have seen on how many levels now that we've just pointed out in this segment. Terrorism, gang members, the drug flow, and all of these things that are weighing, and this is heavyweight, on the backs of American families.
Now, as we've stated over the last 2 days, there's nothing legally wrong with what the president did. I believe that what the president is doing in foreign policy is something that needs to be done. We'll see what the future brings. Of course, there's always questions about the future, but you look at it and you say, well, what has been done so far, whether it's in Gaza, whether it's in Iran, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's in Venezuela, is it the right thing to do? And the president seems to be trending, in my opinion, on the right things. There are foreign threats. You and I never believed, we never bought into the populist part of MAGA that said, basically we need to become isolationist and stay out of everybody's business because nothing is our business. If that's the case, get rid of the Navy.
Right.
Get rid of all the bases around the world. That's not the reality of the real world that we live in. Things that happen overseas will affect the United States. If we haven't learned that lesson from World War II,
right?
And so there's. I think the president has done a good job. Now, the problem is there's a significant portion of independents and of his own party that disagree completely with what Trump is doing. You want to call it the Bannon wing, the Tucker Carlson wing, the MTG wing. It's simply this. Why are we spending any money for any operation in Venezuela when we're supposed to be America first and taking care of people here? I know it's a slogan, but that slogan helped get the president elected by a number of populist Republicans and populist independents.
Mm-hmm.
The simplification of our foreign policy. We can remain isolationists. I don't want to talk about it. No, isolationists. America first. Don't help anybody, without understanding that there are real world consequences for not getting involved in what's going on in the world.
Right. It's, again, the left just wants to have whatever it is that this administration is doing as the counter. The Democrats screamed about Maduro for years, Chavez before him. There was a period when they were pointing it, and Bernie was in that group. And I don't know if Obama specifically was, but during the Obama years, Democrats were pointing at, oh, look, Venezuela is a great example of how socialism can work.
Oh, come on. We looked at that earlier.
Yeah.
Remember Bernie Sanders and, how wonderful it is in Venezuela. And you and I were like, what in the world?
Anyone with a brain knows, and plenty of Democrats among them, that said Maduro has to go. This cannot stand, because it was getting worse and worse. And in the Biden years, it got to a point where something had to be done, and then finally Trump does something about it. We'll see where it goes from here. But again, we're either going to do nothing and do nothing forever, which means live under all the threat and everything that comes with it, just like with Iran and their nuclear power. Or we're going to do something about it, and it may be 100% successful, but it sends them out. Another thing is, for any future leader, the message that we can get to you, and we know everything. We know every step you're making. We know what you had for breakfast. That right there is nothing to be ashamed of, and we should flex that every chance we get, because our enemies and people that want to do damage to the U.S. and take the U.S. down should know you're not going to get away with it.
We're talking outside the country, right?
I was thinking parts of California, maybe Chicago and New York City, but sure, that too.
Watch out, Mandani.
We're watching you.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So here we go. More evidence that they're not socialists, they're communist. Mamdani's tenant director, Sia Weaver.
I think the reality is that for centuries we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good, and we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity. will require that we think about it differently. And it will mean that families, especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have.
A different relationship, Gary. I have a relationship with my home. That's what I have. You mean ownership?
Right. I'm going to go and kiss my house when I get home.
Yeah, kiss
because
the
I have
bricks.
a relationship with
I have
my
a
home.
relationship. I'm going to hug the front door.
Communist, we told you.
That's right.
We weren't wrong.
No, this is it.
Communist.
Yeah.
Commie.
Property rights, gone.
Right.
You don't have the rights to own property.
See what the Dallas mayor said? We're expecting to become the financial capital of the world down here.
Yeah.
With where they're going.
Right, exactly.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.